Hello. So today I'm just going to be voicing over um, some artwork I was working on during stream the other day, and I want to talk a little bit about just working at an animation studio and whether it's a good choice if you're considering working at an animation studio, whether it's a good choice for you personally. And especially I would like to address it in the context of the recent stuff with Blizzard and the controversy with it's not controversy, honestly, it's just a terrible situation. I don't know much about what happened, but I think it brings up a really important discussion. And something that needs to be talked about, especially if you're looking to get into this industry of animation. Yes, oh boy, is it a lucrative it is a lucrative business, but as an artist, whoa, you often get the short end of the stick. Especially if you're a woman. That's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. And to say that, okay, so I heard all sorts of stories about how people are taken advantage of in animation studios. I heard all sorts of stories about that when I was interested in working at a studio. And to say that that did not impact me and my decision to leave that industry or decide to pursue a different career path would be a total lie. It definitely made me uncomfortable. But you know, when you love something so much, like hearing stories like that, you know, you just pray that you're gonna get lucky and not have to face those terrible things that some people have had to face, and that you'll be able to protect yourself enough with your skills by being like a really skilled artist. And that definitely adds on to a lot of the anxiety when you feel like if you're not skilled enough, you could be fired and get yourself into a bad situation. Yeah. And even for people who are skilled, it doesn't protect them, it seems. But I was very lucky in my own experience. I don't have that much experience working at studios, and I only spent a really brief time at an anime studio doing training, but I was super duper lucky because the studios I got accepted into were small studios who actually cared about their employees. Like all the studios I've worked for care about their employees as much as they can, you know, as much as in their abilities. But I remember reading about how terribly Disney treats oh man, like the artists and the women. And then just like sometimes you just hear these random comments from artists who have worked at big studios like Disney and stuff, and you're just like, huh, that's interesting. Why would they say something like that about a studio that's supposed to be amazing? Where they'll just say random things like, oh, I'm so glad I don't work there anymore. And they're like, I'll probably get in trouble for saying something like that, but I just really wanted to say it. And usually the people who say things like that are already well-established artists in their personal art. So it's always made me very suspicious. So this conversation I want to have today is really inspired by a video I saw that Lucid Pixel made about the whole situation at Blizzard, because oh man, do I relate to that video. So I just want to make something sharing my own experience, because if somebody else can learn from my experience, I think it would be just great, you know? That would be beneficial. So yeah, I grew up idolizing animation directors for sure. Man, I mean, I grew up really just worshipping. I would say it didn't begin as worship, but I was just really highly impacted by Studio Ghibli films. I think a lot of people my age were impacted by Studio Ghibli because it really hit something deep within my heart. And because of that, I was always really interested in the idea of creating stories or animation or contributing to a beautiful animated story like the movies from Studio Ghibli. And that's where that passion really was sparked. But it wasn't until I realized how difficult it was to do such a thing that I started really idolizing these directors and heroes and artists. Because then it gets to a point where you're working so hard to try to improve your skills, and when you see somebody who has these godly skills, it's like, wow, they are God. Or at least they've got a part of God in them. And I don't think it's good, to be honest. Looking back at it now, I can see that it's not really a healthy way to treat anybody, even someone you don't know, to think that they have some godly talent that you could never reach, or to idolize a career or job. But at the time, it gave me a lot of passion and drive and motivation, and I do think it came from a good place. But I just wanted to touch upon that because I think, like, as creative people, as artists, it's so easy to fall into that idolization, and that's one of the things that makes it really difficult to protect yourself and stand up for yourself. When you get into that studio you've been dreaming of getting into, when you finally get into that industry that you've been dying to dream, like you've been dying and dreaming of getting into, when you finally rub shoulders and are able to talk to your heroes, when everyone around you understands what you're talking about, when you name drop all these animators that you love, and all this history that nobody else would understand. So I can totally see, and I can totally see my past self getting taken advantage of really easily. And again, I want to say I was always very lucky to not get swept away into that, and almost kind of lucky that I sucked just enough. I sucked just enough not to get into any huge studio. Because I was treated really well at the small studios I was at. And I was able to kind of break that pattern of idolization in it was stressful, but a less stressful way than had I been accepted into somewhere like Disney or DreamWorks, or I don't actually really like those studios much, but let's say KyoAni. Yeah, if I'd been accepted into like KyoAni, or KyoAni is a pretty good studio though, so I don't mean to say, like, I don't mean to throw shade, that's what I mean. But let's say, ooh, man, see, and it's hard to just like name places because, you know, these people are big in the industry. But yeah, let's just say, like, if I had been accepted into Ghibli, right? I don't know what I would have done. I don't know what I would have done. Yeah. I think I realized pretty quickly though. I realized pretty quickly after starting to work, or just like getting an idea of what anime studios, I'll say specifically because that's my experience, but after really experiencing that for myself, I think it was pretty easy for me to see that, you know, what people dream of is sometimes different than the reality. And the thing is, I went into the anime space completely aware of all the low pay conditions and all the difficulties that came with it, especially being a female or like coming across as a female person. But I went into it aware of that, but because I really loved it. I loved what I was doing so much. I just dismissed all of that because there's no other place where you can get that kind of experience of learning how to draw anime and all the specialized skills that come with it. But for me, it was just too stressful knowing that I wouldn't get paid for my work no matter how hard I worked, and that I had no guarantee that it would lead anywhere. And just having trouble socially, it was just way too much for me. So I feel like before just pursuing a studio dream, it's really important to be aware of how much it is a dream and how much grounded in reality it is. Because, and sometimes you just have to go after that dream. I knew that what I wanted was, in a lot of ways, not founded in reality. And in a lot of ways it also was. But it was something I had to do so that I didn't regret, so that I wouldn't have any regrets about what, like thinking about what it would have been like and thinking about if I would have enjoyed the experience. So I had to do it for myself. But looking back now, I think one thing I would change would just to be to stand up more for myself and kick a little bit of that naivety out of myself. Because I believed that I could handle it, you know? I believed I could handle anything if it was for learning the craft, if it was for my art. And that just was far from the truth. That wasn't the truth. I overestimated how much emotional burden being at a studio would be. And if I hadn't been so lucky, if I had been in maybe a bigger studio that did not treat their employees so well, or if I had stayed for a long time and began to be mistreated, that's a terrible position to be at, especially when you're living in a foreign country. I'd honestly, back then, I don't know if I would have handled it properly because of how naive I was and how like blindly passionate I was. So I just want to say, like, if you're an artist and you're working hard, you've got a dream, you've got what it takes. And before putting all your power into a studio that you worship or an art form that you worship, I just hope that you put yourself first, you know? And stand up for yourself if anything's going wrong, because that's what you deserve. And even though it might not feel like that, especially if you've got teachers or people telling you your art sucks, yeah, your art, I know you identify, I know, I'm speaking about this from like my own point of view, but I know you identify with your art a lot and it matters a lot. But at the same time, if, you know, yes, your art in a lot of ways, it's an extension of yourself. It's an extension of yourself. But there's something, how do I put this? There's something even more important that can't be compared, right? Like someone can tell you your art sucks. Someone can tell you your technique isn't good enough. But you are even more than that. There's something that inside of you that can't be compared in a way that where someone can't tell you that your art sucks, therefore you suck, you know? There's something even more important that you must protect. And that is also where your art and creativity comes from. So if you don't protect that part of yourself, that's just not a good way to live. You know, that's just not, with that part of yourself, with that spark in you dead, that's just not a good way to live. So before you think about how terrible you are because your art sucks and you can't please these seniors, right, who are so good at drawing, it's really important to put yourself first. There's art in everything. Your life is your art. It's not just how well you can draw anatomy. It's not just how straight you can draw a line freehand. There's more to life than that. And at the same time, although I'm saying all of this, I don't want to discourage anyone from just chasing their dreams. Because if your dream is to work at a studio, that might be what you're destined to go after. It might be what you're destined to go after. But just like Lucid Pixel mentioned how their dream was to work at Disney, my dream was to work at in anime. And I did reach that goal. And it was totally one of those situations where I reached the top of the mountain and then I looked around and said, wow, there isn't much to this. I've reached my goal. It's exhilarating. I have my own little animation desk. But what's next? Where do I go from here? And I was isolated as ever. My social skills were still crap. You know, the only thing I had under my belt was knowing that my art was good enough to be at this studio. But then it also helped me realize that there's so much more to life. There's so much more to life than just that. And I have the utmost respect for my friends who are working in animation and the people I've come across in animation. I think that they are all amazing. They're all amazing people. And they have got, like, they are definitely some of the most intelligent, most creative, most, like, kindest, yes, the kindest, most considerate, just most savvy people I've known. But you know, the people I know who have stuck in that industry and are doing well, I think they have found a way in the past or through the process of valuing themselves, not just as an artist but also as a person. And I think that is so important. That is so important. So just like, please, I beg you, just like remember, just like how your salary does not define your worth as a person, how good your art is does not define you as a person. It can be hard to believe at times when you're in the environment, but it really is true. It really is true. I would like to make a video next about how to get a job in anime before my information becomes outdated, because yeah, this industry information gets outdated real quick. It might already be outdated, but I want to make a video about that. But before I made that video, I thought it was really important to just put together something saying this, especially with the current situation, which is really tragic at Blizzard, and just like my experience meeting other people and friends who are all so passionate about creating art that they truly care about, and just seeing the fire in their eyes and seeing how easy it is for them to just give their life away. Because everybody talks about what their dream studio is. Everybody talks about the artists they look up to. Everybody talks about who they want to be like. And when you're in that kind of adoration mindset, It's so easy to get swept away by the first person who tells you you're good enough. So you're good enough as you are. You know, art is a journey. More than anything, it's a personal journey. It can be tempting to outsource that personal journey to a big studio or to someone you really admire and look up to. But I warn against that.